There was a man who kept a fire for 900 years. When the earth was still young, there was a man who saw the world grow old. He didn't count the years. He counted the generations. He saw the earth fill up with things that shouldn't exist. Your father walked with God and was found no more. They gave him a name that was a sentence. When he leaves, the waters will calm. As long as he breathed, judgment was postponed. God's patience had a face, the oldest face on earth. 969 years of mercy. Methuselah. In the beginning of days, the earth was still young. The forests were too tall, the rivers too wide. The sky hung low, as if it still remembered when it had touched the ground. And among the hills, a small village. Fire before dawn, clay on their hands, the line of Seth living simply. But far away, far, far away, something else was growing. The first innocent blood had already been spilled. A brother had fallen by a brother's hand. And from that day on, generation after generation, men learned to build, and learned, along with it, to destroy. The more they grew on the outside, the more they rotted within. That night, a man climbed the mountain alone. Enoch. He carried wood on his back. On the high stone he kindled a flame, small, trembling, a vigil lit against the darkness of the world. He watched the fire take hold, and he whispered to the dark like a man speaking to someone present.
As long as it burns, there is still time.
There was no answer in words. There was a sudden peace, firm, like an unseen hand upon the chest. And Enoch went down, knowing his life would never again be the same. That same dawn, in the hut, a cry tore through the silence. The son of Enoch was born. His wife, still breathless, pressed the child to her chest. The baby was frail, but he opened his eyes, dark, deep, like a mirror of the night. And Enoch felt a dread that was not ordinary fear.
Her husband. What will the name be?
He waited, like a man listening to something beyond the flickering fire. And the voice came, not through the ears, from within. This one shall live longer than all the men of the earth. And on the day he departs, the waters shall come. Enoch closed his eyes. He lifted the newborn sun toward the sky, which was beginning to rise red behind a thin mist. And he spoke the name like a man pronouncing a sentence he did not yet understand.
His name shall be Methuselah.
The word hung in the air. No one in the hut knew what it weighed, but heaven knew, and the clock began to run. The boy grew up beneath the fire of the vigil. He learned to lay the wood, to breathe upon the low ember, to never let it die. And he learned the stories, that there had been a garden, that there had been a fall, that the ground had once drunk blood and was never the same again. One morning, before the sun had fully risen, Enoch called him to the hill. The wind blew free up there. The ember of the vigil flickered between them.
Father, why do you not let the flame die out? Every night you climb, every night you feed it.
Because the fire keeps the time. Every night it burns is a night God still grants the world.
And how long does God endure?
As long as necessary, but not forever.
His father laid a hand upon his shoulder.
One day this fire will be yours. And when it is, remember, time is given, son. It is never taken.
Methuselah did not understand it all, but he kept every word, like a man guarding an ember. That same week, the boy understood what his father had meant. He was walking down through the village when he heard shouting near the well. A man, large, strong-armed, was tearing a basket from the hands of an old man.
This is mine now.
I planted it. I planted it. I harvested.
And I am stronger. The world belongs to whoever takes it.
Some looked. No one moved. A woman pulled her child indoors, and the man walked away with the basket, whistling. Methuselah stood frozen, his heart pounding. It was the first time he had seen with his own eyes what the world out there had become, and he never forgot it. There was, however, a man who did not need to hear the stories, a man who had seen it all with his own eyes. One afternoon, Enoch took his son far away, beyond the fields, to where few dared to go. There lived the oldest of them all, the first, Adam. His skin was like the bark of ancient trees, his eyes two still lakes. He had watched nearly 1,000 years go by, and each one of them dwelled in his face. Methuselah, still young, sat at his feet, and the first man spoke.
I walked in a place without death.
The ground was soft, the beasts gentle, and at evening he walked in the wind. And we were not afraid.
Methuselah barely breathed.
And we lost it. For one bite, for one lie, for wanting to be what we were not. I carry the garden in here, and I carry too the door that closed behind us. So there is no going back.
There is no going back. But there is a promise. It was said that from a woman, one will come,
he will crush the head of the serpent. I will not see him. Perhaps you will not either. But he will come. Heaven does not forget what it promises. Keep this, boy. Memory is the one thing death cannot take.
Soon after, Adam died. The first man returned to the dust from which he had been taken, and with him departed the last witness of the garden. The village barely noticed. The hammers went on, the fences, the voices arguing over boundaries. But Methuselah stood before that grave for a long time, and he understood. Someone had to remember. Someone had to guard the memory of what had been lost and the promise of what was yet to come. That night, he climbed the mountain alone. His father's ember was burning low, almost gone. Methuselah knelt. He breathed gently upon it. He laid fresh wood, and the flame rose, licking the dark. He was no king. He was no warrior. He was a witness. And as the fire grew in his hands, he whispered the old vow to the heights.
As long as it burns, there is still time.
Silence. The earth was still young, but death already walked among men like a silent sentence. And a boy with a name of warning had just accepted the burden of counting the days. The years passed like a wide river, impossible to hold back. Methuselah grew. He became a man, and at his side, Enoch was becoming something else. On the outside, the father stayed the same. Clay on his hands, fire before dawn. But within, another journey had begun. He would go out at dawn. He would climb to the high place where the wind blew free. And there, far from the voices of men, he spoke with the unseen, like a man speaking to someone present. There was no spectacle. There was direction. And in time, everyone noticed. He walked with God. It made him a contrast. While the village grew in quarrels, land, boundaries, pride, Enoch sought only what was right. He did not shout. He pointed. He spoke of the Creator not as a rumor, but as a presence. Some laughed. Others looked away. And a few drew near in secret, tired of the guilt, afraid of the future. Methuselah watched his father, and he watched the world. And he saw the two of them drifting apart, because the world was changing, and not for the better. It was in those days that Enoch began to see, not with his eyes, deeper. He would wake gasping in the dead of night, his eyes wet, a light on his face that was not of this world. And what he saw would rob any man of sleep. He saw sons of heaven descending to the earth, lights falling like stars that should not fall, settling on the high mountains, taking for themselves the daughters of men, what was not theirs, and teaching men what men were never meant to know. Iron, the blade, the art of killing from afar, the root that poisons, the sign that deceives, the charm that bends another's will. Every secret of heaven sold as a gift. Every gift becoming a chain. And he saw the fruit of that mingling, shapes too tall on the horizon, shadows walking like mountains, sons the earth had never asked for, who devoured the labor of men. And then the men themselves. Creation groaned under their weight, and it cracked from within. Enoch saw it all, and he woke with the taste of ash in his mouth. One dawn, Methuselah found his father sitting outside, trembling.
What did you see?
I saw what is coming. I saw the earth filled with violence, and heaven cease to keep silent.
And what shall we do?
What we have always done. Walk upright, even when the world bends crooked. Do not trust what your eyes desire, son. Trust what God says.
And then came the night when the voice spoke clearly. Enoch stood on the height before the ember, and the air changed. The fire bent without wind, and the voice filled the mountain, not loud, but deep, as if the earth itself upheld it. Behold, I come with my holy myriads to execute judgment against all flesh. For every work of ungodliness the ungodly have committed. Enoch fell to his knees, and he understood that it was not a threat, it was a date. The next day, he went down to the village and proclaimed it, without theatrics, only truth. He climbed onto a stone in the middle of the market and lifted his voice.
Listen, the Lord will come. There is a limit, and it draws near.
Come from where, old man? Your God has never shown his face.
Perhaps that is why you are still alive.
Work! Like the rest of us, instead of frightening children.
I do not sell fear. I warn. There is a difference.
They mocked him. A woman stopped to listen. A young man lowered his eyes. But most went back to what they were doing, laughing under their breath.
Heaven does not forget. It is you who are trying to forget heaven.
No one answered. And perhaps that was the worst sign of all. Few listened. Many laughed. Some grew angry. And Methuselah, watching from the corner, grasped something he would carry forever. The distance between heaven and men was not the absence of God, It was human refusal. After that, Enoch changed even more. As the world grew louder, he grew quieter. He walked lightly, as if the ground no longer held authority over him. At times he would stop in the middle of the path, like one hearing footsteps no one else could hear. He would vanish for days, and on one of those times, Methuselah followed him. He found his father in a cave by the faint light of a lamp, bent over stretched hides, tracing signs upon them, words in a writing the sun had never seen.
What are you doing, Father? I write. What is shown to me I set down. The names of those who fell, what comes upon the earth, the judgment, and what lies beyond it. For whom? For those not yet born. One day, when the world is washed clean, someone will need to remember they were warned.
What was shown to him, Enoch recorded. The names of those who fell, what was coming upon the earth, the judgment, and what lay beyond it. Methuselah looked at the hides covered in signs, stacks of them, years of vision, and he understood that his father did not merely walk with God. He worked for him. He was the hand that recorded what heaven did not want lost. And Methuselah began to fear, not his father's death, but something he could not name. One gray morning, Enoch called him to the hill of stones. It was only a steady look at the door, and the certainty that this conversation had to happen. The wind was cold, the sky low, and Methuselah saw his father lighter than ever, as if the earth had lost part of its hold on him. Enoch placed his hand on his son's shoulder.
I do not have much time here.
Keep walking, even when no one wants to walk with you anymore. Teach your son not to sell his soul for a piece of land, and remind them all that time is given, never taken.
They went down in silence. The village was already awake. Baskets, prices, laughter too loud. No one noticed the weight of that morning. No one noticed that the sky seemed nearer. In the days that followed, Enoch walked alone more and more. He went out early, came back late, sometimes did not come back at all. Until the evening he went out and did not return. The sun went down. The shadows stretched long. The cold crept in through the cracks. Methuselah took a torch and climbed the hill, calling for his father in a low voice, like one afraid the world might mock him. That was when he saw it. On the top of the mountain, a light. Not the light of the torch, not the light of the moon. A column of brightness descending from the sky, golden, living, without end, resting upon the stone where Enoch stood. Methuselah stopped, breathless, and he heard, from within, as his father always had, a single word, "Come." Enoch lifted his face to the light, and there was no fear in him. There was recognition. The brightness rose, and the Father rose with it, dissolving into the glow like dew in the sun. Methuselah ran. He stumbled. He reached the top, gasping. And there was no body, no blood, no sign of struggle. Only the ember of the vigil still burning, and footprints that ended where they should not end, as if the path had been cut off by an unseen door. At dawn, exhausted, Methuselah came down. The people wanted an explanation that would fit in a human mouth.
Where is Enoch?
He had none to give them, only the truth.
He is no longer here. God took him.
Then he died.
No. If my father had died, I would have found his body.
The rumor spread. Some called it madness, others a fable. But deep down, they all felt an ancient fear, as if God had passed too close to be ignored. Because if God could take a man to himself, he could also take the world for judgment. But before the rumor, before the village, there was the mother. She was waiting at the door when Methuselah came down. Her eyes searched behind him along the empty path.
Where is your father? Where is he?
He has gone with God. He is not coming back, Mother.
He was always more there than here. Now there is you and his fire.
That night, Methuselah stood alone before the stones. The wind passed between them like a whisper of farewell. He knelt. He touched the earth. And he realized he was trembling, not from cold, but from reverence. His father's ember was burning low. Methuselah reached out his hand, and for the first time, he fed the fire without Enoch beside him. His hand trembled as he spoke the old vow into the dark.
As long as it burns, there is still time. What do you want from us?
There was no answer in words, but there was a certainty. Time was running faster now, for there are fathers who depart and leave land. There are fathers who depart and leave gold. Enoch departed and left a fire burning, and a son who would now walk alone, guarding the flame of a world that no longer wanted light. And time went on, not in years, in centuries. Methuselah lived and went on living. People were born and died beneath the same sky, and he remained, not as a king, not as a warrior, as a witness. He saw grandchildren born. He saw grandchildren grow old. He saw faces he had cradled as infants, lowered into the earth, white with age. He saw villages become ruins, and ruins become villages. He saw riverbeds change their place. He saw trees he had planted fall from old age, while he still stood beside them. He buried friends. He buried the children of friends. He buried those who had laughed at him, and the few who had listened. And with every farewell, he returned to the mountain. He fed the ember. He marked another stone. Each mark a warning. Each mark a year that heaven still gave the world. And something began to change in him. His hands hardened. The skin cracked at the tips like the bark of an ancient tree. His fingers took on the color of beaten earth. Methuselah looked at his own hands, and he understood without words. Time was not passing through him. Time was gathering in him. As if with every century, he became a little more of the clay he had come from. All around, the world was sinking. Violence stopped being the exception. It became the method. Injustice stopped being shameful. It became the custom. The strong took what they wanted. The cunning called deceit cleverness, and the weak learned to hide, for even weeping aloud had become dangerous. Desire came to guide every choice, and what had once been hidden was now done in the open square. Methuselah saw one afternoon what the world had become.
She does not belong to you!
Everything I reach belongs to me.
There are laws.
Laws are for the weak. I take what I want. I deserve it. And no one here can stop me.
The old man was left alone, on his knees in the dust. Methuselah took a step forward. His hand gripped the staff. But he was one man, old, against a crowd that had already chosen the side of the stronger. And he understood with a terrible weight that the world had not been seized by a tyrant. It had been seized by consent. All of them together, silent, in agreement. Methuselah stepped back, and that scene stayed in him like an ember that burns from within. And on the horizon, the city was rising. Not the simple village of Seth, something else. Towers of stone raised by the sweat of many for the glory of a few. And upon them the gleam Enoch had seen in his visions. Metal, polished bronze, forged iron, blade and ornament, the arts the sons of heaven had taught, now shining in the hands of men. Where the line of Seth lit fire to keep watch, the city smelted metal to rule. And what had been forbidden became pride. And there was more. On certain evenings, at the very edge of the horizon, Methuselah saw them. Shapes too tall, too wide. They walked slowly, like mountains that had learned to walk. Dust rose at their feet. The earth seemed to shrink beneath them. The sons of the mingling, those who should not exist. It was said they devoured the labor of men, and that when that was not enough, they devoured the men themselves. Methuselah did not run. He only watched and gripped his staff until the bark of his hands creaked. For he understood what those shadows meant. Creation had been invaded, and the Creator was watching. Methuselah walked among the houses like one crossing a memory that no longer belonged to him. He saw empty eyes. He saw children learning to lie too soon. He saw hardened old men and arrogant young ones, and in none of them any fear. He saw men weigh the worth of a person the way one sets the price of an animal. He saw women weep quietly because weeping aloud had become dangerous. He saw a man's word worth less than the wind, shame treated as backwardness, and cruelty dressed up as a right. Where once the glow of the village came from Enoch's fire as he spoke of God, now it came from polished metal and from desires without restraint. The earth seemed fertile, but the heart of mankind was dry. It was into this world that his wife conceived. The news should have brought only joy, and it did, but it also brought a dread. For every birth was a new thread, binding one more life to a future that could be terrible. That night, Methuselah laid his hand upon her belly.
You are afraid.
I am. To bring a child into a world like this.
Your father brought you into a world already falling, and you became the light that remained. Perhaps that is what God does. He does not put out the dark all at once. He lights one candle at a time.
Methuselah looked at her, and for a moment, the fear loosened. It was not hope yet. It was only one more reason to go on. When the boy was born, the cry filled the house. Methuselah took him in his arms. The skin still smelled of blood and milk.
Lamech, your name shall be Lamech.
And he looked into the newly opened eyes with a strange certainty. That boy would see things no one should ever see. Lamech grew up in an age of excess. More food, more instruments, more feasts, and more exploitation. More envy, more brutality. Methuselah tried to teach his son what Enoch had taught him, to walk upright when the world bends. But teaching was like sowing seed on hard ground. Sometimes it sprouted, sometimes it did not. One afternoon, Lamech came home with his face bruised and his clothes filthy.
What happened?
A man tried to take what was not his. I stopped him.
Anger is easy, son. Justice is harder.
And what does God do when no one wants justice?
Methuselah was silent. Within him, the old vision stirred. Waters rising, voices swallowed.
God waits for a time.
Lamech bowed his head, and in that gesture there was a struggle. Not only against evil men, it was against the temptation to give up on being good. The years ran on. Many died, others were born, and Methuselah went on. There were those who treated him as a legend, those who avoided him as an omen. Children pointed and whispered. Old men looked at him as if his very existence were a living question. Why does God still allow it? And there were nights, this Methuselah would confess only to the fire, when he himself wondered if it was worth it, to bear witness to a deaf world, to light a flame no one looked at, to mark stones no one read. On one of those nights, he almost did not climb the mountain. He almost let the ember sink. But then he remembered his father's hand on his shoulder.
Keep walking, even when no one else will.
And he climbed, and he breathed upon the fire, and it grew. For the righteous man does not light the flame because the world deserves it. He lights it because the light is true. And as long as one single man refuses to let the flame die, heaven still has somewhere to rest its eyes. When Lamech had carried enough years to have seen evil repeat itself like a cycle, his wife conceived. The news ran through the house like fire, and for the first time in a very long while, Methuselah felt something close to hope. Not naive hope, desperate hope, like a man finding water in the desert. On the night of the birth, the sky was heavy. The wind came hot, carrying dust. Lamech's wife cried out, and each cry seemed to wrestle with the world itself. When the baby's cry filled the room, the sound came like a rupture, a beginning in the midst of the end. But then the house lit up, not by the lamp, by the child. The boy's skin was white as snow, with a tint of rose newly opened, his hair white as pure wool. And when he opened his eyes, the whole room glowed, as if the day had come in through the window in the middle of the night. The midwife stepped back. The mother was speechless. And Lamech felt the fear rise before the joy. He took the son in his trembling hands.
This is no ordinary boy. Look at his eyes. Look at the light. Woman, whose child is this? What if he is? One of them. What if I am holding the child of the angels?
No one could answer him. That very night, Lamech ran to his father and placed the luminous child in Methuselah's arms.
Father, this child does not seem human. His skin shines. His eyes light the house. He looks like the angels of heaven. What does this mean? What am I to do?
Methuselah looked at the baby, and the baby looked back, and there was peace in that glow, not terror. But the old man had no answer. He knew only one man who would, and that man had departed centuries ago. That night, Methuselah climbed the mountain of the vigil. He knelt before the ember, and he did what he had not done since his father was taken. He called out into the dark,
Father, If you can still hear me, I need you once more.
The wind stopped, and then the ember grew. Without wood, the light rose, golden, and took shape as brightness on the high stone. And Enoch was there, not as a man of flesh, as a presence, clothed in light, his face serene, his eyes full of heaven.
I heard you, my son.
A child was born, Father. His skin white as snow, his eyes, they light the house. Lamech is afraid. He fears the boy is one of the fallen one's children. Lord, what is this child you have sent? Reveal to your servant the meaning of this sign.
And the voice answered, filling the mountain, "This boy is righteous before me. He was not born of those who fell. He was born to undo what they have done. The earth is corrupted. I will wash it with water. But through him and through those who are with him, the earth will begin again."
You heard, my son. The child is a sign of mercy. The Lord has kept him for an immense purpose. Care for him. Protect him, for it is he who will save the generations yet to come.
Father, stay.
I no longer belong to this world, but you do. Go on, guard the fire, guard the boy.
And the light rose, higher, brighter, and Enoch departed, this time never to return. The ember sank back to its old size. The mountain fell silent. But Methuselah was no longer alone in his certainty. Now he knew the name of hope. Back at the house at dawn, Methuselah returned the child to Lamech.
Do not be afraid. He is not of the angels, he is of God.
He shall be called Noah, for this one will give us rest from our labor and from the pain of our hands.
Methuselah heard it, and his eyes burned. Not because he believed a baby would wipe away centuries of corruption, but because now he knew God was still planting signs. Noah grew up under mixed glances. Some laughed at the name, saying comfort did not exist, that the world belonged to the strong. Others, weary, only wished it were true. Lamech taught his son to work, to listen, not to bow to brutality. And Methuselah, by now ancient beyond all men, his skin all like bark, his eyes deep set, watched the boy with an attention that was no longer quite human. Noah grew and became a man. He was not perfect in the eyes of others, but there was something rare in him, a limit. When everyone chased after excess, he drew back. When everyone laughed at the fear of God, he kept that fear. One quiet morning, as the wind blew dust over the fields, Noah stopped. Not from weariness, from impact. It was as if a presence cut off his breath. He saw no shape. He heard no human voice, but he understood that God was speaking. And the understanding came with a weight that bent the knees. I have seen the earth. It is filled with violence. All flesh has corrupted its way. I will put an end to everything that breathes beneath the sky. Noah could not move. But with you, I will establish my covenant. And then came the command, strange as something from another world, and at the same time, simple. Make an ark, wood, measure, compartments, a door, a single opening for the light. You shall enter and your household, and of all that lives, 2 of each, that they may not perish. 120 years. That is the time I still give the world. The voice ceased. The field became only a field again. But Noah would never again be only Noah. That night, Methuselah sought him out. The old man carried centuries in his gaze, and he recognized in Noah's face the same foreboding that had once burned in Enoch.
What did God command? An ark.
For an instant, he saw the old vision, now without mist. Houses submerged, voices swallowed, and in the midst of it all, a distant flame. The same one Enoch had dreamed. Now it had a name, an ark.
Your great-grandfather walked with God. Your father called you comfort. And Adam, the first of all, told me of a promise. I have lived all this time to see this day. Build, my son, build.
Then Methuselah held out to his grandson a bundle of hides worn by time.
Take this with you into the ark. Your great-grandfather wrote it for someone not yet born. That someone is you. May the world that comes after the waters never forget it was warned.
The next morning, Noah began, not with spectacle, with obedience. He chose the wood, he marked the ground, he measured the space, he raised the first beams. Every blow of the tool was an announcement, and the neighbors came to watch. First, curiosity.
Noah, what are you building? A house for giants?
A refuge.
A refuge from what?
From the judgment.
Then came the scorn. The ark became the talk of the city. Where they once discussed harvests, now they discussed the madman of the wood. They invented stories. They said he had heard voices, that he wanted to be king of a boat, that it was only a trick to get free labor.
They say he hears voices, that God himself talks to him.
Voices, sure. And the rain will fall from a clear sky.
You know what they say? He wants to be king of a boat, lord of the timber.
A kingdom of goats and straw. Let him have it.
It's a trick, the whole thing. He just wants free hands to build his monument.
Judgment, he says. There's no judgment coming. Only a fool wasting good wood.
And through it all, Noah went on. Hammer, rope, cut, joint, obedience. Then came the sabotage. They stole tools. They loosened ropes. They knocked down stacks of wood in the dark. Noah gathered it all up and began again. It was not passivity. It was persistence. It was as if every attack proved that the world could not bear the memory of God. And then came the threat.
Noah, when that water comes, call me. I'll swim right in.
For a moment, his silence was heavier than any speech.
I will not be able to call you afterward.
The laughter faded, but it did not turn to repentance. It turned to irritation. Methuselah watched from afar. He had seen mankind make everything: tools, fences, weapons, whole cities. But he had never seen anyone build with the conviction of one who answers to heaven. And he understood with sorrow what the great divide of the world would be. Not between rich and poor, not between strong and weak, between those who would treat the Word of God as noise and those who would treat it as life. That night, on the top of the mountain, the ember of the vigil burned. And from the city down below, some could see it, a stubborn point of light in the dark, that troubled eyes grown used to the shadow. Methuselah added another mark to the stone. His hand trembled, not from weakness, from awareness. Time was running out. And for the first time, he did not ask why he had lived so long. He understood. He had lived to see the plan be born. For God does not bring an end without offering. Before every flood, he raises a piece of wood. Before every judgment, he holds out a door. And whoever has ears for heaven begins to build while the world still laughs. The ark was finished. Years of wood, sweat, and mockery ended. It was no longer only a structure. It was a presence. Too tall to be ignored, too silent to be forgotten. And still, the world chose to pretend it was only wood. Outside, life went on. Feasts, trade, quarrels over small things. Men lived as if time were an endless rite. And that was what made it all the more terrible. The world was about to be cut short, and it seemed at peace. But there was something few knew, and that Methuselah carried alone. As long as he breathed, the waters would not come. His name had always been this, a sentence deferred. When he departed, it would come. Every morning the old man opened his eyes. Was one more day given to the world? Every breath of his held back the sky. The patience of God had a face, and it was the oldest face on the earth. Methuselah knew it, and so he breathed slowly, like a man holding a door open, so that one more soul might have time to enter. But no one entered. One afternoon, he went down to the ark, his steps slow, his body now almost all bark. Bronze and fissure, a man turning into living earth. Noah was working on the final details, his face hardened by responsibility. Methuselah drew near and spoke low, a confession only the boy would hear.
I have lived so long, my son, and still it seems little. Time only seems long until the day it ends. Then we are close.
And the two of them stood in silence, looking at the door of the ark. Heavy, solid, a line between two destinies.
Around those days, Lamech grew weak. Age at last had caught up with him. And one quiet morning, the son of Methuselah closed his eyes and did not open them again. And the old man buried his own son, he who had seen his father taken by the light, now lowered into the earth the boy he had once cradled, the man who had called Noah comfort and would not live to see the comfort arrive. Methuselah did not weep aloud. His tears had long been dry, like bark. He only laid his hand on the fresh earth, but heaven was still holding him here, because as long as he breathed, there was time.
I should have gone before you.
And then they began to arrive, not all at once, not with spectacle, but with something worse, inevitability. Animals appeared on the trails. They crossed fields. They passed by men who watched them without understanding, small and swift, large and slow. In pairs, walking together, guided not by instinct, but by decree. The people gathered, first out of curiosity, then out of unease. For there was no human explanation that could fit it. Methuselah watched a herd cross the dust without turning aside, going straight toward the ark, and he felt something he had not felt in a long time. Pure awe. Not fear of death, the fear of God. It was like watching the unseen touch the seen. Then Noah gathered his household.
Come in.
There was no ceremony. It was simple, almost dry. As if words were not enough and the steps mattered more, he only beckoned them in. His wife looked at him with brimming eyes, not only from fear, from weight. To enter meant leaving behind everything that was familiar, neighbors, paths, memories. Noah's sons and their wives went in silence. There was no victory on their faces. There was responsibility. It was to cross a door, knowing there is no going back. Methuselah walked up close to the structure. The wind stirred his mantle. He looked at the open door, and he did not enter. His whole life, so long, seemed to have been a road leading to that place, not into the ark, but to its threshold. For his place had never been salvation. It was the waiting. He was the time granted. And the time granted does not cross the door with the saved. It is fulfilled on the outside. Noah looked at him from the entrance. His eyes begged, without words, for him to climb in. Methuselah only shook his head, slowly. And he smiled, and with a look, sent his grandson on.
Go, my son. I have done my part. I held the door as long as I could.
That night, Methuselah climbed the mountain one last time. His steps were slow but steady. From up there, he saw the ark like an enormous shadow. He saw the people like restless ants. He saw the sky like a ceiling about to break. The ember of the vigil still burned, low, faithful. He knelt beside it.
As long as it burns, there is still time.
Then he looked up to the sliver of light still left between the heavy clouds. He remembered Enoch walking with God. He remembered Adam and the promise. He remembered every marked stone, every farewell. And he understood at last what his life had always been: an interval, 969 years of interval. A time stretched beyond what seemed possible, a time that many had wasted, calling patience weakness.
The elder lay down beside the fire. His face turned toward the light, and there was a final gesture from the old man as he departed. His weary eyes closed slowly, not out of fear, but out of memory.
It was said that from a woman one will come, and he will crush the head of the serpent.
And he departed, serene, like one finally letting go of the door, a door he had held for 900 years. For even the longest mercy must come to an end. And when the last righteous soul of the old earth closed his eyes, the clock of the heavens finally reached zero. Atop the hill, beside the motionless elder, the ember of the vigil burned low. 900 years of flame, lit by Enoch, guarded by Methuselah, fed night after night like a promise that refused to die. And then, the first drop fell, just one, heavy, from the sealed sky. It fell upon the ember, and the ember went out. A wisp of smoke rose and dissolved in the wind. When he departs, he shall come. The name was fulfilled. Methuselah had guarded that flame and that word for the same reason. As long as they burned, the world still had a place to return to. Now the flame was extinguished, but the word was not. On the seventh day, the sky closed tight, and the sound came. Not that of delicate drops, but a deep roar, like the earth cracking from within. The fountains of the great deep burst forth, and the floodgates of the heavens opened. The water came from above, and it came from below, and the earth, which for centuries had received blood and violence, gave it all back, in water, not as an accident, as judgment. Inside the ark, the family waited, and then, without human hands, the door closed, sealed. It was not Noah who closed it. It was the sky, like one bringing an era to a close. The sea forgot its boundaries, the cities, the metal they were so proud of, the laughter in the squares. The water covered everything. It covered hills, it covered names, it covered pride. And atop the hill of the vigil, the water rose gently and took the elder back, dust to dust. The man who had become clay, returning to the clay from which he came. The ancient world vanished, without applause, without explanations, in absolute silence. And then, the ark moved, buoyant, lifted from the ground, raised above the waters while the world sank. Outside, a storm. Inside, breath. Life preserved. Methuselah had been more than just the oldest man who ever lived. He had been living proof that heaven waited. Every year of that extraordinary life was a year the door stood open, a year the world received as a gift, yet called weakness. The longest life of all was the longest mercy of all, and when it finally flickered out, the ark floated on. For judgment was never God's final word. The serpent would still have its hour. But the promise Adam had whispered to a boy, and which that boy had carried for 969 years, lived on, floating above the waters, kept safe in wood and faith. One would come, born of a woman, and he would crush the serpent. The end of the old world was merely the beginning of the wait.